Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with their bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you break. We've had enough of all the money you make. We've had enough, no more life gets taken. We've had enough, this is a proclamation. It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait. Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you were breaking. We've had enough of all the money you were making. We've had enough, no more life gets taken. We've had enough, this is a proclamation. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. You better believe, just roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough, all the money you're making. We've had enough, no more life gets taken. We've had enough, this is the proclamation. We've had enough. Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice. We've had enough. Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price. We've had enough. Philando, Breonna, George Floyd. What? We've had enough. So many gone. How can we fill the void?
How can we feel?
We've had enough. John Crawford, I know you've heard. We've had enough. Sandra Bland, come on and take a stand. We've had enough. Sean Bell, what the hell? We've had enough. Freddie Gray, did you hear what I said? We've had enough. This is a proclamation.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along. I love the music. That's the music of Ryan and a number of local musicians, including my brother, Wayne McFarlane. But it's appropriate for today, for these times. There is a sense of we've had enough of all the things that spell injustice in our community, that spell disadvantage, that spell marginalization, things that spell devaluation. And I think that on every front, our people, our community, and our allies now rise to declare that enough is enough and that now, today, is the day of change. Well, one of the arenas that will affect the change, and they're all related, but it's the arena of economic development, personal development, economic opportunity, jobs, workforce. And I'm pleased to have two leaders in that space in our community to be with me today. I want to start by introducing Renee Dossman. She's the president of the Neighborhood Development Center, and that's a community development organization based on University Avenue in St. Paul, but with a Twin Cities impact. Renee Dossman's background includes leading various teams in merchandising and product development and design for Target. She also served as a vice president of bakery and vice president of category development for a company called Southeastern Grocers. She and her husband are also the founders of Affirmation House. It's a not-for-profit for homeless men that provides housing and services to eliminate homelessness. In addition, she's a certified professional and executive life coach, and has owned businesses herself, is a business owner. In 2021, she was named Person to Know by Twin Cities Business, and she's a member of the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs. CDFI, I think, is Certified Development Fund Initiative. You'll correct me on that, Renee.
Development.
Community
Development
development. Okay.
Financial Institution.
There we go. Thank you for clarifying that. You use these terms all the time, and sometimes you don't pay attention to the specific meaning, but thank you for making that correction. And in addition, she serves on the Destination Northside Committee. She participates in the Anti-Racism and Economic Justice Trust, which is located within the Center for Economic Inclusion. Also, my friend and long-term leader, visionary leader, some say a force of nature, Atum, they call her Mother Atum Azahir, and she is famously associated with her leadership role in the Wellness Institute. I think the proper name for that would be
Cultural Wellness Center.
Cultural Wellness Center in South Minneapolis. But the engagement includes working with major health and business and financial and civic institutions, cultural institutions in Twin Cities, and among them, her leadership and partnership with NDC in major enterprise projects in South Minneapolis. So first of all, my friends, welcome to you both. And what I want to do is just sort of have this as a conversational presentation exploration, but do so by asking Renee for you to sort of give people 101 on NDC. Just give the background. People might not know. You guys have been around a bit. You're doing phenomenal work. Let me, in the spirit of disclosure, say that I have been and remain a client of NDC, and I can tell you that I'm a satisfied client. Your company has been a major resource in me developing plan and structure for my business. So for that, I am grateful and I thank you, and I acknowledge that to our viewers and listeners. So Renee, talk about NDC.
Thank you so much, Al. That's wonderful. We love satisfied clients. NDC has been around for almost 27 years, 28 years. It was founded by a man named Mike Tamale in Western Bank with the help of Bill Fans and many other people. We primarily focus, our primary focus is on entrepreneurs of color. 86% of those we served are entrepreneurs of color. 81% are in the low to lowest income. So we are very strategic and focused in the neighborhoods. So we have 8 of the lowest income neighborhoods across Minneapolis and St. Paul that we focus on. And we've most recently added Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center. So what we do is it's 4 areas. We do training. We have training programs that we do in community with the other community organizations. So obviously prior to COVID, that was done at their locations because we believe that within building entrepreneurship in community is the way to combat, to generate generational wealth. So we now moved all of our trainings online. It's a 12-week training program for entrepreneurs. We also do workshops. We're developing more and more workshops as everything goes, as things continue to develop, and we want to be focused. So we do the trainings, and then as an entrepreneur, you would move and you could get some technical assistance. You'll get what we call technical assistance in the training program, but you'll get that throughout your time at NDC. We call it complete wraparound services. So our training, our technical assistance would be helping you get your website set up, helping you get your accounting system operationally, strategically thinking about your business, marketing and branding help, any support you need to start your business. And then, like, as you mentioned, we are CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, which means that our focus is to borrow to the unbankable. So our banking, the lending that we do up to $250,000 is to those people that might not be able to get a bank loan. It's character-based lending. And we've done, I'd say, 77,000 hours of technical assistance And we've done, up to this point, we had done about $27 million in loans. But this year alone, NDC has done about $7.5 million in loans and grants. We established an emergency grant program. We did all of the funding. We're still currently doing PPP loans to assist businesses. And then so you got your training, you got all this assistance, and you got money. Now you need a location. So the fourth pillar for NDC is our real estate and our incubator spaces. And that's where we've had the pleasure and the opportunity to work with Mother Atum at the Midtown Global Market, as we're co-owners of the Midtown Global Market. So that's one of our largest incubators located in South Minneapolis. We also have incubators in St. Paul. We have a construction and trade incubator that's on the east side of St. Paul. We're actually in the process of building a brand new incubator space on the corner of University and Dale that's going to house our training center, our NDC offices, and we have just had our first tenant sign her lease. Her name is LaShante Grigsby. She's going to open up Flava Coffee, and we're super excited about that.
What building is that in? What building would that be?
We actually are building it. It's brand new.
Oh, brand new.
It's under construction right now. Love to
which corner? I'm trying to visualize which corner is it going to be on.
Right on the corner of University and Dale, right where Big Daddy's Barbecue was.
Got it. Okay. Northwest corner.
Okay.
I think. Okay. All right.
Don't get me going with north and west.
Okay. Well, no, I see it in my mind. I understand where it is. That's great. That's wonderful news.
Yes, it's wonderful.
So continue. Go ahead.
No, that's pretty much it. So we have the pillars, and we do training specifically for food groups as well as for food businesses. We have a food training program run by Lachelle Cunningham, and then we also do Section 3 training for construction. I think, the trades and construction is an area of focus for us with our lending that we're looking into, because we feel like there's a gap there. But yeah, so
let me jump to Mother Atum. And Atum, wanted you sort of introduce to, if you would, the mission and vision of the Cultural Wellness Center and how that ties into the economic activity that you partner with NDC on.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here today, and I do want to officially let the community know that I am sitting in for Anthony Taylor, who is the cultural economist with the Cultural Wellness Center. And part of the work that the Cultural Wellness Center has been doing now, once again, we're 25 years.
Amazing.
In 1996, we opened actually at the corner of Bloomington Avenue and Lake Street. Mm-hmm. And the powerful thing about that opening is that we built out the building, the bank building there that had actually been purchased from PPL. I mean, with a small amount of money PPL had purchased the building with. And we were the first major tenant along with the bank that was there at the time. And what happened is that our presence in the bank building, the cultural wellness presence in the bank building, with this flow of people from all various walks of life, and especially people of African heritage, especially Black people who were in the process of developing themselves, and as the work that we do, building their resources, their assets, and replacing their liability with culture. And because that is the work we started out doing, we then became very actively involved with Mike Tamale and NDC in both really continuing to see Bloomington and Lake Street become really what is today we talk about as a cultural corridor. Well, that really became a cultural corridor because of the Mercado there, and all of the businesses, the small entrepreneurs, came in from various places, really actually in the this number of people who are classified, as new Americans, came in and many got their start right there to develop their entrepreneurship. So the Cultural Wellness Center, it's an organic relationship that began as a part of Neighborhood Development Center's effort then to expand that. They were really in close relationship with ADC and LEDC, which is the Latino Economic Development Center and African Development Center.
Mhm.
And we were once again invited in because of the organic nature of our involvement with various cultural people who really was, again, hanging on to their culture, hanging on to their ways of doing, and at the same time, building businesses. And so the experience we had of being involved with and facilitating this cultural asset development became a part of the business development that NDC and as a part of NDC's community development model. The model itself, is a model that, as you heard from Renee, it is a model that takes into consideration all of the person's assets and liabilities and integrates those into a business plan. We were fortunate, Cultural Wellness Center was very fortunate to be identified then as a partner with NDC in doing the business plan writing, where once again, the piece that we brought to the table was, again, you can't just look at cash. So the Cultural Wellness Center created this idea of cash, the three C's of business plan, which is, we talk about it as cash, culture, and connectedness. And so the three C's, those are the three C's, the bottom line for our business plan development. Once again, as a partner then, we started with the community building, the community organizing, the reintroducing people to culture, and the building community within and across culture as a part of the business development model. When NDC was invited and identified, and as a matter of fact, I think Mike would agree with me, that they were pulled into becoming a part of the development of the Sears building because LEDC, ADC, and others, LEDC in particular, Latino Economic Development Center, did not want these major businesses and Ryan companies as a major developer to really replace the kind of small businesses that had become a part of the growth and development of Lake Street and Capitol and Chicago, Lake Street in Chicago. So that place, since Sears had closed, was a terrible plight. I mean, awful. And so the community didn't want the major developers, and they demanded, I would say, and pushed Mike Tamale and NDC out front in the development. With NDC then came the Cultural Wellness Center's involvement with the model that I had mentioned to you earlier. So that's how we got involved. The Cultural Wellness Center's mission is to unleash the power of people to heal themselves and build community. So there is a through line in the creation and development of community that really is about the restoration of culture and the asset development of peoplehood, which is the model of community development that Anthony has now put on the map. It is powerful. It's amazing. So I know you don't want me to talk about Anthony on this time, but
I do know Anthony is worth talking about. He's a great guy.
The development model is so powerful because it started with Cultural Wellness Center in NDC. It is now growing. So the cultural wellness approach to community development is starting to really find its way into other development projects. So NDC, Cultural Wellness Center, MGM is our brainchild together. NDC, Cultural Wellness Center, LEDC and ADC, but NDC and Cultural Wellness Center are the remaining owners. And we have had the opportunity to to really penetrate, even with COVID-19, we've been able to penetrate this kind of death rate. It's a very powerful thing to think about how businesses die,
Hmm.
communities and families die,
Hmm.
and that all that's been happening, we have been able together to really begin to look at how do we give a certain kind of rebirthing process at Midtown Global Market. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening right now. Uh, they have, NDC has really this whole area of development that has been very successful with entrepreneurs from various cultural backgrounds and communities. Culture Wellness Center has been very successful in the health and healing of various people from all different walks of life, but particularly those who, in terms of the African in America, those who are not just recovering culture, but livelihood and life chances that have actually been denied and rejected. We have seen that always as really hiding assets. And we now have the chance to bring those forward and once again to see those unleash in the area of health as a through line for community development. So that's what we're doing together, and it's pretty exciting.
I think it's powerful. I'm not sure why I'm getting feedback from a microphone here, but I think it may be too close to it. If that's better. So
That is.
I think that's powerful. I think it's wonderful. And where I want to take the conversation is two places. I absolutely admire the centrality of the notion of culture. Uh, and what I have said, Mother Atun, is that we've come to a place where we present culture as an asset, not a liability. And
That's right.
the context for that statement was that in past, the model for being was European culture. And
Mm-hmm.
anything outside of European culture was considered less than or non-viable,
That's
uh,
correct.
not sustainable, not
Yeah,
necessary, and
That's correct.
misguided. And so
That's right.
part of the disease, I call it, of white supremacist thought was
mm-hmm.
its ability to cast aspersion without any substance on anything other than what it deemed as white culture, which it called culture. We have challenged that. And what you are doing challenges that. And you challenge it by saying, you cannot see us and our culture as deficits or as liabilities. Culture for us is an asset and it's a
Yes.
strength. So talk about that. Culture as an asset, not a liability, and how that in and of itself demands and creates change, not only in our community, but in how the world must regard our people.
I absolutely love
Well,
it.
yeah, I mean, I think you know that cultural wellness is has been once again kind of my life work. I think that the way culture for us is an asset. Culture, we talk about it and teach about it as a resource. And the way it becomes an asset is if you want to just take the negative side of what has happened through the enslavement and the colonization of people all over the world, is the things that were stripped right away, immediately, is language, strip the language, strip connections to each other and to your past. Origin is erased to the best of their ability so that the cultural dependency that is created doesn't allow you to, once again, it's a dependency. In other words, it's, if you think about it, it's like an addiction. So you become dependent on the very thing that is destroying your capacity to exist. So for us at the Cultural Wellness Center, for these many years, what we've been really looking at is, number one, whiteness is coming from a particular cultural point of view. And so what we want people to see is that that damages not just Black people and those of us who have experienced that force that tries to destroy us, but it also damages the one who created it and who produced it.
Yeah.
So this imbalance really cannot do anything other than create and produce what we have here. And so our focus has to be on self-development and self-realization, self-worth, value, and then the development of that which tried to tell you you were worth nothing in the first place. And I think that's the challenge that we have and the challenge we try to meet with wealth creation and community development kind of.
Love it. And I think the way I've seen, oh, is that me getting feedback now? The way I've seen culture play out with, which has been exciting for me to see, to be honest with you, with some of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with, is in their ability to innovate and think outside the box and try different things. So I'm thinking of an entrepreneur that we're working with right now. Her name's Destiny, and she started the Black State Fair, and she did it in, you know, started it in the middle of COVID. Did Had all these vendors there. We connected with her. She put together a plan. We did a Black flea market inside the global market. But that was a person that was told no and could have been told no many times, but continued to persevere and to look for innovative and out the box solutions. And I see that day in and day out with a lot of the entrepreneurs that we encounter. And I had an opportunity to sit in on, I've sat in on a couple of our trainings and some of our graduations, and you just see the spirit of resiliency. And I feel like in this almost this swagger of, I'm going to make this work, or I'm going to figure this out no matter what, because that's just what you had to do. And so that's one of the things about our culture that I absolutely love, is that there is just always the spirit of, I'm going to figure this out. Let's work together. Let's do this. And let's do it in a way that it hasn't been done before. And that to me is an exciting part of working with some of the entrepreneurs that we work with.
Mm-hmm. I think
So,
the in Midtown Global Market at this point, the place where we get to re-envision
Yes.
the space, and where we get to restore the capacity of people to really stand on their own ground. I mean, many of the entrepreneurs were left with really almost a sense of nothing. So the businesses failed, the customer base was on lockdown, and people were really afraid. And I think there's a little bit of fear still there.
Of course.
However, the fear is being replaced and reversed. It's being reversed based in vision and mission. So I think that yes, you're right. And now people see that culture, language, rituals, ceremonies, all those things are coming together, the social networking.
Mm-hmm.
People had to rely on each other. There is absolutely no way you could make it through this without relying on each other.
Yeah.
And relying on each other becomes a part of this whole kinship network, social support, and all those things that you hear about theoretically. Mm-hmm. But in the business world, I see at Midtown Global Market, what I've seen is the business has to have what we call social network, and it becomes for the especially, and I really want to say especially the African American business owners. You gotta have a social enterprise segment of your business. Mm-hmm. And so you can't just be about money. You are also about developing a customer base. Right now, we all are talking about buy Black and unite and come together. Well, that buying Black and so forth requires connections to each other, support for each other, encouragement of each other. And when one of us doesn't have something, if the other one has it, we all have it.
Yeah.
So those are cultural values that I think are now being incorporated into the business.
Let me ask about the environment right now that we're in. Two big issues. They coincide and they have, in fact, produced kind of a double whammy in terms of the assault on our way of life for the country in general, for the world in general, but particularly on our people here in Twin Cities. One is the COVID-19 pandemic. Talk about how that pandemic and our state's response to it has impacted your businesses, or maybe have benefited some businesses that have been in the caregiving, the solution side of that equation, because any challenge presents not only the danger that it is, but also presents an opportunity to develop a response, and that response can be robust and
Sure.
affirming, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that in particular, and then I'm going to come back and ask you to talk about the insurrection, the uprising, the devastation our communities felt, both emotionally, personally, but also physically, and particularly in that you operate and support businesses on University Avenue and Lake Street and MGM, and also in North Minneapolis. What has been the impact? And let's talk about the silver lining, if there is such. I think there is, that we should be aware of and promoting. So talk about the impact of COVID-19 and reference to your thoughts about how we encourage our people to be protected, if you agree, to get vaccinated so that we save ourselves and do our part.
Please. Yes. I just actually had my first shot a couple weeks ago. I would definitely encourage it. The COVID was devastating, and I think it was something that we all shared collectively in different ways, because it impacted people in different ways. I'm blessed enough to be able to work from home and do things like that, but that's not everybody's story. But when I think about our entrepreneurs, not only in Global Market, but also in our Frogtown Square location, all of the locations, it was just, if I think about it even specifically for the market, you had been reliant on this stream of business from, say, Alina, because that's right there in the building. And then one day that it's just like that stopped. And so it was like, well, now what do we do? Even though you could be saying, hey, you need to make sure that you expand your customer base and do delivery and do all these things, they didn't know. And I would say that I remember early on, because I thought it was only going to be a couple weeks, the state did an excellent job of bringing all the different agencies together and having a call every morning at like 7:30 and answering questions and brainstorming together. And it was a place where you got a lot of information. And I think that they responded really quickly trying to get money out. So in our organization, we have a lending team, but we knew that we needed to go where the need was for the entrepreneur. Our entrepreneurs are North Star for everything we do. We don't do new programming. We don't do anything without having it be driven by the needs of the entrepreneur. So we moved, everybody on the team became helpers to lending so that we could get the money out, because we knew that getting the money out quickly was the key. But there were so many barriers to getting the money out. Like, the forms that came out, they needed to be in different languages. People didn't understand it. You had to have some financial documents pulled together. And so when some of the money came out, it was going really fast. I don't know if you remember that, some of the loans and things. And it was like first come, first serve. Whoever gets their document, then you get the money. And it's like, well, we were doing it that way. And finally I was just like, stop, like, this isn't true to who we are and who we serve. The people that we serve might not be able to get their documents done in a day or get it back to you because they weren't prepared. And so that's the lesson for me, is that how do we just make sure that we help people be prepared? Like, we have some things coming down the pike now with this art, right? Like, we know there's going to be some funding for restaurants. We know there's going to be some more funding for entrepreneurs with this American Recovery Plan. And part of that is, we just keep saying, get ready, get your finances in order. When we think about what happened with the tragedy of the murder of George Floyd, and the insurance and people not being underinsured and not having enough insurance and all of those things. So it was just important for us to mobilize and say, stop, we got to put the brakes on this. We got to give people the resources. So that's where the technical assistance comes in. We got to give them the support. And then you just start to build the foundation. And then we set up new programs. We did an emergency grant program. We did, because people needed grants, not loans, and they still do. I mean, no matter what anyone says. And then we also recognized that, to your point, Mr. McFarlane, there were some businesses that had a great delivery system set up or great social media, and there were others that didn't even have a website, so couldn't even communicate with their customers. And so we set that up and did a program called the Tech Pack, and just really started to respond to where the entrepreneurs were and what they needed. And we continue to do that to this day. We reduced our rents. We've done outreach to and direct assistance to those entrepreneurs that are in our network. But anything we could do to keep them going, and also let them know after everything happened that they are still a source of inspiration. I think everyone realized when you're losing your corner store, you're losing your business, you're losing your restaurant that you always frequent, those things matter. They matter in your life. They matter in community. And it was just really important to us to do whatever we could to make sure that when this is over, because it will be, as long as we all get vaccinated and do the proper protocols, we want those businesses to still be there. And we want them to not only be there, but we want them to be thriving while they're there. So that's all of our efforts were put on that. How do we make sure that they not only endure this, but they survive and they thrive in this time?
Sure. Well, Mr. McFarlane, I think both your questions, I think, speak to what is happening at Midtown Global Market, right in the heart of what became the unrest, located right on the path, right in the middle, right on the front line. Many of the groups and activities that were happening either right smack in front of, right on Chicago and Lake, in the eye of the storm.
Ground zero. You were ground zero.
Absolutely right.
It was horrible.
Absolutely, it was right. So there was a lot going on. I think that many of the entrepreneurs joined hands. They stood together to have a presence, a visible presence around the building, to show themselves unafraid, and to show themselves honored almost to be there. And there is something about that we see as being necessary for us as we think about the number of people who were showing their rage and anger and despair through many forms, that most of us don't necessarily turn to, but understand it very well. Yeah. So there was a lot going on right around Midtown Global Market. I think because we're in the heart and in the eye of this, we also had to respond in a very, very different way. I think many of the responses that we made were invisible and silent, but nonetheless critical to the survival of the business owners and the community. Midtown Global Market is not disconnected from the people who live there. That our vision has always been that it's a geographic location, but it's also a cultural and spiritual location. Yes. The people there matter. Yeah. Their existence and their continued vision of having a vision for themselves really matters. So what was happening on the outside of the building spilled over to some degree on the inside. So our response from the inside out then also had to be one of attempting to join hands and to join hands with Allina Health. Allina Health, as you know, have their corporate headquarters inside that building. It's a significant part of it because when Alina made the decision to bring their corporate headquarters inside of that plan and to have a very, very long-term lease there, what they committed to was a long-term relationship with the people who live in the community. So that wasn't just a leasing kind of idea. It was one that said, we're joining forces. Cultural Wellness Center has been involved with Alina from the beginning. We created something called the Backyard Initiative. And it wasn't because Alina started talking about themselves as being, they want to help those in their backyard, where the community members really let them know real quickly that Alina was in their backyard. So that sense of Alina having their corporate headquarters in the backyard really, I think, has played out in a positive, powerful way. Alina Health has been, as I said, a partner for us for a while. We have something called the Community Health Hub, which is opening inside of Midtown Global Market. We have within the Health Hub, which is where right now lots of activities in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Health is happening. We have our on-the-ground navigators who are really making sure that people are tested. We have the night calls or the hotline for people who are being tested. Our contract with MDH is one that really require that we can go out and find people who otherwise would not be found to make sure they understand how to get tested, where to get tested, and how to go through the process of testing, because many times people will know the location is coming in. As you know, people of African heritage in particular and indigenous people have not been tested at the same rate as have other people. And because of that, MDH is reaching out in those communities through people who have really close ties to residents. And so the Cultural Wellness Center is one of those. And that happens in the Midtown Global Market in our office, which is really referred to as the Health Hub. I think the second thing about that is Alina has, in terms of health, I think you know that Alina's CEO is one of the physicians and the CEOs who's really looking at this idea of eliminating racism in the healthcare field. And so that critical dedication, I think, to people that Alina has in their work with Cultural Wellness Center and engaging people is really shaping the experience that many people are going to be having in the Midtown Global Market. So there again, you're going to have culture, cash, and connections as a part of what people are building. I think the last thing I'll say about that is the idea of vast. One other thing is we have this wonderful ancient grains part of our health hub. And the ancient grains is where we are going to work with University of Minnesota students to find grains, ancient grains, that is going to help us with this piece that we're doing that's called culinary heritage. Where do you find, and there's a major business within the market, the indigenous food business. Once again, it's taken a very big presence. So we have indigenous food, we have African foods, we have indigenous food, and looking at culinary heritage and health, culinary heritage, and the Cultural Wellness Center looking at culinary heritage and health, and bringing those as more anchoring to the Midtown Global Market, which is helping, I think, us all think about neighborhood nutrition, think about this through line of health and community development, and how business and business development is more than just becoming, it's more than capitalistic. It's more than capitalistic. It's really, as a matter of fact, possibly transcending capitalism and giving us a chance to look at the connections that we have. So that's what we're doing. We encourage very, very strongly, even though I've been an advocate of challenging through the Tuskegee and other knowledge that we have about vaccinations and research and all of that and science, we are saying we now as a people are going to have to take the instructions that we have gained from being revealed as having the pre-existing conditions be one of the reasons that we're dying at a higher rate. We want now to make it accessible to us and to study and work together to make this healthy for our people. I'm 76. My husband and I happen to be in the range and category, but we also have some of the pre-existing conditions, which means that we were able to get our vaccinations earlier. But intellectually, we had to take the vaccination. You know what I'm saying? We had to say to many, many people who look to us around cultural practices to say, let's now step out together on this. And we can bring science to the place where it intended to be all along, which is to help hold humanity to health. That's what we're doing. And so we are involved in it, active in it, and really grateful to be consulted to the degree that we are about it.
Let me ask both of you what kind of impact there was on businesses in the MGM, but also along Lake Street or in your customer client base that at NDC. Were any of the businesses, any number of them, shut down because of the state's shutdown order? How did that impact them?
Yes,
And
we
then
have.
then what was the impact of the night or two of insurrection? Did the market have to close down? Did any of your businesses go out of businesses or have to shut down because of the unrest?
All of the above. And we actually, we're a big part of St. Paul too. So along University, there was a lot of damage as well. And we do outreach and been reaching out to those businesses just to provide them support, just like we're doing around around MGM as well. And then being a part of the North Side group as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a case, an example of the Midtown Eye Care Clinic was completely burnt down, lost their entire building.
Mm-hmm.
We immediately were in the market, was like we had some spaces as a result of COVID or just people just saying, I'm out, I'm done, I'm ready to go. We had some open space in the market. And so we were very intentional about wanting to hold that space for people who had been displaced, who had lost their businesses. So the Midtown Eye Care Clinic actually, and we received, I just got to say, we received a lot of generous support from a lot of foundations and organizations. Big grant from U.S. Bank and United Way funded us to do some outreach work specifically for Black businesses as well. And so we were able to provide some grants to these businesses so that they could restart and rebuild. And so I'm really proud of the Eye Care Clinic because it's a beautiful space that they were able to recreate inside the market. It's great for the community to have that kind of service still in community. But yeah, we had several. And if you think about, as Mother Toom talked about, the market was under attack for several nights. We were up all night. And there's people that live above the market. There's condos and housing above the market. And they put together their own plan, and they patrolled the market every night and kept it safe. And so, I remember I came after one of the first night and was like, I just want to see how much damage we've sustained. And there were all these people there outside the market with brooms and mops and helping. It just became this epicenter of hope in the community. But yes, we suffered damage on, at Frogtown Square, and up and down Lake Street as well, and up and down University Avenue as well. So we just did outreach to those businesses. We received a lot of different funding at that time. We provided that funding to those businesses. But I do want to say, if you think about it from my team's perspective, they had been running 100 miles an hour just because of COVID, trying to keep everybody afloat. When the murder of George Floyd happened, I seriously felt like the air got sucked out of the room for all of us. It was like, we can't take anything else. Like, this is the final straw. And so I'd like to say that I'm really proud of the fact that we were able to get some mental health, some mental wellness resources to our teams. And we're doing the same thing by getting that to the entrepreneurs that we support, because it's been too much. And trying to support others while trying to keep yourself sane and healthy is important. And so we've had we call it Mindset Reset. It's a program that we're doing for entrepreneurs as well as internally. And we've had 4 2-hour sessions with our team, just talking about how do you recognize it? How do you do self-care? Because that's important. And I say to you, in the nonprofit space, that's not typical. Like, you just don't, everything has to go towards the mission. And I was like, I agree with that. But if my team's not sound, we're not going to be able to execute on the mission. We're just not.
Let me say a couple of things. We're moving towards the end of the hour. I got an email today from my friend, you guys know her too, Laisha Ward, who is one of the leaders at Target.
Yeah.
And it just came a little bit ago, but Target today, she says, is announcing that they're going to invest $2 billion of spending with Black-owned businesses by the end of 2025.
Yeah.
And she called that part of the company's effort to use their size and their scale and their resources to bring equitable experience and economic opportunity to the guest and the Black community. So I think that's laudable. I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
We'll be writing about it and posting it in Insight News. And I commended, in my response on Facebook, I commended Target by saying, number one, you did the work, you're doing it. But number two, equally important, you're telling the world that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's the telling the world that will shift the narrative, that creates a new narrative and sets a new standard for the entire entrepreneurial and economic experience. So that's important.
They stepped up on so many levels. They stepped up to help the Midtown Global Market with their website. They have a whole team of people helping us reimagine the space on the interior, exterior. So they said that they were going to donate their volunteer hours, and not only they put their money where their mouth was. And now with this announcement, that I just got a note on that as well. There's so many entrepreneurs now that are going to get a chance, and to be inside a Target store, spoken as a person that was at Target for over 20 years. It's a blessing, and they really are supportive of their employees giving back to community. And so I was really proud to see that today, because they have truly been one of those organizations that stepped up and they listened. They came out right away with the Target on Lake Street and said, we're reopening. They came out the next day. And then when they were rebuilding it, they asked the community to come in and ask us what should be in this space and how should we do business. So they are definitely exemplary.
And I want to say that strongly that Target is one of the supporters of this kind of bringing the through line of health and the redevelopment of culture as a part of community development. They also gave us a significant support to do exactly what we're talking about here today. Cultural Wellness Center has never been funded as a community development. People see us as health and healing, but as community development. And Target took a very large step to really support us in that. So once again, you're right. It's not just that they're talking about it. They actually are doing it and taking risks, the kind of risk that oftentimes funders do not take. It's a risk to really invest in cultural community development. Yes. And they did that, and Midtown Global Market is the location where we're carrying much of that out, as well as other places that we're building. So Target is, yes.
And I think kudos also to, I've done stories on them, interviews on my friends over at U.S. Bank. U.S. Bank, in conjunction with Children's
Yeah.
And also General Mills has organized a collection of corporate
Yeah.
leaders and community
Mm-hmm.
active and development organizations to do specific development initiatives in the Black community. What's significant about this, from my point of view, is that too often the vogue of language of the day talks about BIPOC, you know, Black,
Yeah.
Indigenous, and other people of color.
Yeah.
And that's good, it's true, but sometimes that allows you to not look at the detail. And the detail of the damage is the close examination of the historic and systemic deprivation, structural damage to African, Black American people and the Black community.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I laud the U.S. Bank team for saying that we are specifically talking about Black American business development and community development. One more thing. And so I say that because I think that we have to lift up companies that do that and say that is the expectation that we have of everybody in the marketplace, because this problem was not created by one company or one element. It's something that we all have a part in, and the solution we must all own as well. The last thing I want to say is that I got a note today as well from the SBA saying that, I'll read it to you, it's kind of nice. According to our records, you received a COVID-19 Economic Industry Disaster Loan, EIDL, from the SBA to help your business weather financial hardships. These loans were previously limited to 6 months of economic injury up to a maximum of $100,000. But the SBA recently announced a policy change that significantly increases loan limits up to 24 months of economic injury with the maximum amount of $500,000. NDC, what does that mean for businesses like Al McFarlane, for Insight News and McFarlane Media, and small businesses that you serve? This money is there. I believe we should go after it and get it used to grow our businesses. And we have to work on eliminating any hesitation or lack of preparedness, like you talked about earlier. How do you prepare our people to take advantage of these things that can really set the footing for generational wealth building in our community? What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think now's the time and now's the opportunity to seize it. And I understand that it's complicated. That's why you should reach out to NDC, because that's what we do. We provide technical assistance to help you navigate that, so that you understand, because those forms and that process, and remember the website kept crashing and all of that stuff. So we help you navigate through that. But it's the same thing we're seeing with the PPP. I think the PPP, now that they've made those changes so you can be a sole proprietor and still get the PPP, is a great way to get some wealth, to get some money. And I know that it's a loan, but if you use it for what they said it was, it's forgivable, and that's good money. And so now with the new expansion of the EIDL, that's good money. But I know that it's complicated, and I know that it's daunting, and I know that it's scary because we're still in the midst of this pandemic. But I would say to you, reach out so that we can help you navigate this, because taking advantage of these opportunities, they're not going to be around always. They're here for a reason, and they're here to help us during this time. And so many of us, like I said, because we're not 100% prepared, or maybe something's not all the way right, well, we can work with you and pull that together and do what we need to do to make sure that you can actually take advantage of these opportunities.
Let me throw one more wish list type thing in front of the both of you. And I thank you so much for what you do and for being here, and just for both the outcomes, the things that you have produced as organizations, but also the spirit that guides that productivity and that vision of enabling our people. And so as a communicator, as a newspaper, my hope is that we always continue to elevate the notion of the power of communication. My experience is that too often our people choose not to, or encouraged not to, understand the information infrastructure that is embedded in our community. What do you mean, Al McFarlane? I mean organizations like Insight News exist
Mhm.
to bring our story to ourselves and to the world. And so my hope is that in building on discussions like this, we come up with specific strategies so that our communications tools can be brought to the service of businesses and families more broadly, more aggressively, in ways that are financially profitable for everybody concerned. So I'm going to leave it with that. It's an expectation, it's a hope, but I'm speaking it into existence and sharing
Yeah.
this with you right now.
Yes.
So I want to thank you. I want to thank you.
Thank you.
And let me ask you both to let our viewers and listeners know how to connect with you and how to reach you for more information or for your support.
Yes, you can go on our NDC website, ndc-mn.org, and reach out. We got us. I'd love for people to get signed up to our newsletter, to our communications. To your point, because we
Mhm.
send a lot of information on grants and different opportunities that present themselves that we hear about through that vehicle. So I really suggest that you sign up for our communications.
Okay.
And I would say the Cultural Wellness Center's website also is Cultural Wellness Center, and all I can say is that please contact us through the Cultural Wellness Center, but also through the Health Hub, which is at Midtown Global Market, and the Ancient Grains Project, which is again at Midtown Global Market. So those locations are really following what the state requires, but we are there.
And the Midtown Global Market has its own website as well.
Yes.
Thank you both. And thank you for listening, for watching, for tuning in, checking us out on Facebook. If you like this kind of conversation, please like it, share it, subscribe to this channel on YouTube, and help us move the conversation forward. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you this time tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.